Hello, and welcome to Small Business 21st Century, formerly known as Skills to Pay the Bills. The segment today we're going to be talking about is from the Open Palm System Martial Arts School. I am Master Instructor Terry Lee Ryan, and I've been doing this for quite some time now, and I'm just going to try to let everybody know what the martial art is all about that I teach. I really enjoy doing a martial art that is realistic. So most of the time when I'm doing my classes, I'll talk about the realistic approach to martial arts, meaning something that is going to work, especially on the street. And with all the things that are going on in the world, you have to have something that's just realistic. So a lot of the martial art techniques that I do really relies on the realistic approach to martial arts. And that could be anything. It could be anything from being somebody grabbing as a choke. If we're doing a choke position, if we're doing a wrist grab position, somebody grabs you. If somebody goes around the back of your neck and chokes you, if somebody kind of wraps around the body, you need to have something that's going to be realistic. And so in my eyes, realistic is the route to take in defense, especially today. I've been doing martial arts for many years now, going on about 40 years now of martial arts. I've been doing it so long that it's in me now. I really love it. Everything I do now, again, relies on the realistic approach. The program that we're going to be talking about is based off a program that I invented back in the 90s, and it's called the Basic 8. And the Basic 8, again, relies on realistic approach, but it also relies on simple motion. I believe that if a person is going to be attacked by anybody in a self-defense situation, it's always going to be different sizes. You may have a female who is 120 pounds where the attacker may be 260 pounds. You never know what the difference is going to be. So once we change that and we think about the difference in size and muscle and bone, then the technique changes. Once you change that technique, you have to make sure that all the elements are going to work to make that technique work. So what I mean by that is if somebody grabs my neck, which we're going to be demonstrating a little bit later on, somebody grabs my neck, I'm not going to rely on the muscle, because what if the person is bigger than me? If he's bigger than me and 260, 300 pounds, muscle to muscle is not going to work. So what do I need to do? Well, I need to rely on angle, leverage, momentum. Those are the three main ingredients to make martial arts work in this day and time. Angle, leverage, and momentum. At the same time, I'm using joint locks, I'm using pressure points, I'm using the momentum especially. And a lot of times, there's a lot of martial arts styles that are out there. Taekwondo, Aikido, Jiu-Jitsu, all these different styles. You've got to rely on something that's going to work. And so that's why I come back to the realistic part of martial arts. When I'm doing martial arts, I try to keep it as real as possible. And if I have a young one that I'm teaching who could be 10 years old compared to an adult, and I talk about a lot of my buddies that are out there right now in martial arts, 80, 85 years old, they don't only just do Tai Chi, they do martial arts. Because all ages, anybody can be attacked in the real world. So you have to keep that in mind in the realistic world, right? I say on my webpage all the time, realistic martial arts for the real world. And that's the way it should really flow in the real life. So I really based it off of angle, leverage, and momentum, right? Later on, we're going to be talking about how to do this self-defense technique with another assistant instructor that I have here. And we'll be talking about what to use. Now, once we use those self-defense techniques, you've got to keep it in your mind. And it doesn't happen overnight. You've got to practice over and over and over again till it becomes a mindset. It's the same thing as if I said, I'm going to teach you how to walk differently. Instead of walking right and left, I'm going to say right, left. Things are different. In martial arts, we have to do the same thing. It has to be the repetition of a self-defense technique to make that work. So again, practice makes perfect. That's one side of it, but perfect practice makes perfect technique. So you've got to make sure that you practice all the time. And again, later on, once we get into these self-defense techniques, you'll see how this really works. It's very applicable to make a technique work if you have the practice in it. You really have to make sure that the practice is there and you're consistent. Consistency is very important in martial arts. Again, I've been doing it for a good 40 years. I am a 7th degree black belt. But again, you can tell my belt is a little diminished here because of all the years I've got into it. But you just as well call me a white belt, because that means that I want to learn more and more. I don't want to stop. Just because I become a black belt, I want to continue. How do I continue? By keeping my mind open to learn more and more self-defense techniques. That's really what it's all about. If you're going to go a step further, take that step in a good direction and learn something that's going to be especially realistic. And I keep on saying that word because we have to make sure that self-defense in this day and time is going to be realistic. I enjoy all the other martial arts. I've got different black belts and different systems. But a lot of times when you're faced on with an opponent or an attacker directly in front of you, everything changes. The difference being, if I say we have a street defense, and this is the way it works, street defense, and we have a classroom defense, or we have a tournament defense. The difference is, in a tournament, you're not going to end up gouging somebody in the eye, or you're going to break a wrist, or you're going to do something like that. On the street, you may. And I always use the part about it, especially in the street. If you're doing self-defense in the street and you're defending yourself, not only are you defending yourself, I look at the immediate family behind me. I look at my family behind me. I look at my grandmothers, my grandfathers. They're all behind me. The whole family is behind me. If my life is changed in a self-defense situation, that changes. So we have to make sure in self-defense what is going to work in a realistic way. And that's why it's so important to keep that word in mind, realistic. Later on, when we go into the self-defense part of this, and I'll show you what this is all about, you'll understand more and more why I say the word realistic. It's very, very important to keep that in mind. And again, angle, leverage, momentum. Now let me add 2 more things: pressure points and joint locks. And maybe I can kind of talk about a little deeper about angle, right? Angle and leverage, momentum. When we get into the self-defense, you'll see how that works. In fact, you'll see how the pressure points and the joint light, as far as a lock will happen a lot of different ways. But you have to rely on the angle, momentum, and leverage to make that joint lock work. Okay? Let me talk about one more thing here, and it's really important to understand this part. In a situation in defense, the first thing that comes to mind is awareness. You've got to be aware of the surroundings. If you're in a mall, if you're in now school, it's so upsetting to see this, but if in school zone, if you're at a party, if you're at a club, if wherever you are, awareness has to be the first tactic. You've got to be aware of your surroundings no matter what. And once you get past that point of awareness and you see something coming towards you in a bad way, in an attacker way, right? You're not really sure just yet, because it could be anybody. You can't be as far as, jumpy in a martial arts situation, not just yet. But you got to have that awareness. The next step is verbal defense. So I know if I have that awareness part of what's going on, all I need to do at this point is look at the situation. If the person's over here looks really suspicious, well, I've got to look at that in awareness way, in a martial art way, in a self-defense way. And then from that moment, if it changes, if it escalates, that means I'm going to go to verbal defense. So now I have an attacker who's going from one part to another part. He's stepping from this part to this part, and now he's in front of me. And I've got to use the verbal defense to say, excuse me, you need to back away, no matter what. And you've got to be loud about it. And I talk about this all the time. Don't look down when you're trying to defend yourself. You can't say, excuse me, can you back up? You've got to look directly at the person. Directly at the person. You need to back up. That is the verbal defense. That's why it's called the defense, because you're being a little abrupt about it, but you're protecting yourself through the words. So the verbal defense is the second part. The third part is the physical defense. And that's where it's going to change from a verbal part to you actually doing something. Now, there's different parts of the physical defense that you've got to think about. And I call it 1 through 10. I call it 1 through 10. I know that if the attacker is in front of me and he doesn't look like he's got a knife, a gun, a stick in his hand, whatever, a bottle, whatever he seems to be, there's nothing in his hand, and he's just really vulgar. It doesn't mean that at that point, you're just going to kick him in the head. No, we don't want to do that. We want to take a step back and try to minimize it. Try to kind of bring it down and say, look, I really don't want anything to happen here. Why don't we just talk about this? And bring it down, from a 10 to a 1 if you can. Now, the 1 through 10 that I'm talking about is totally different. That's the 1, 2, 3 of the self-defense. And as I'm doing that, right, and I'm looking at this person directly in front of me, I'm trying to de-escalate. I want to bring it down, make sure that he understands. Now, if it jumps from that part, now remember, this guy's not holding a knife, not holding a gun, no bottles. He's just in front of me. He may throw a fist. I'm not sure yet. We have to be the awareness. That's got to look at the situation, right? The verbal defense. If we're still talking and he's not screaming, you can keep it kind of at a slower pace and a lower pace. So as he's doing that, I'm looking at a person to see, what do I need to do in this situation, right? A lot of times when I'm doing the defense part, step 1 is really important. You've got to de-escalate. You got to make sure, because we don't want any problem. As a martial artist, I know what I can do. I know how to defend myself. And once you become a martial artist and you train in this field, you become a little more secure in what you're doing. You don't have to worry about, I wonder if I can really take this guy out. You don't think about that. So coming up in the next part of this show, you're going to really be enthusiastic. I can tell already, everybody out there is enthusiastic about this. But we're going to get into the self-defense part. And we're going to talk about the basic 8. And we're going to start with number 1. Number 1. I'll give you a little understanding about number 1 is a single choke. Single choke. And we're going to be talking about that single choke. I am going to have with me, of course, one of my assistant instructors, Mr. Don Bruce. He's going to be with me. We'll be talking about what to do in this situation when you're being choked. Now, again, it has jumped from a awareness part to a verbal defense part to a physical defense. And so we're going to really tap into that part about the physical defense and understand how to make something happen in a realistic way, utilizing angle, leverage, momentum, joint locks, right, as simple, and pressure points. And all these things will make this technique work. I've been doing it for a long time, so trust me, it's been used. I do a lot of demonstrations with this particular technique also. So we're looking forward in this next segment to really get into the defensive part. And again, I want to make sure that you practice. Once you see these self-defense techniques, I want you to practice and be consistent about it. Everything in life has to be consistent. So make sure that you're consistent in practice. All right? Looking forward to this next part of the segment. Again, my assistant instructor, Mr. Don Bruce, I'm looking forward. We're going to have a great time. Just make sure that you keep that consistency happening in martial arts, okay? Also, I want to make sure that when you practice, it's not always right, but you can do your best. Do your best. We look forward to seeing you in the next segment. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Again, it's great to be here. I am demonstrating today, and this is the second part of our show here. We're going to be demonstrating something called the Basic 8 from the Open Palm System Martial Arts School. I am Master Terry Lee Ryan, in case you're just joining in right now. And I got to tell you right now, I'm excited to teach you the first technique of the Basic 8. The Basic 8. I have along with me right here, assistant instructor, Mr. Don Bruce. He's been doing martial arts with me for a little while now. And so his face is actually padded right now, so I don't know. I'm just joking. But it's going to be great to show the self-defense technique. Again, I rely on something that's going to be realistic. And instructor, he's going to help me here. And you're going to enjoy this very, very much. I want to talk about a few factors before we get into the self-defense technique. There's some basic techniques that we want to use as we do martial arts, especially for the first self-defense technique, the first one. The first one that we're going to think about, it is called a hammer fist. And a hammer fist is based off of using this side, right? This side of the fist, right? And the way that it strikes is in an angled position going this way, right? And you can see where he's hit me, just from that little side angle right there. Again, it's utilizing this, right? And it's not one of these techniques that go all the way across. It's coming directly from the front. So his hand is in the front, and as he throws that out, right, straight to it, straight to it. That's the first technique that I want you to practice, right? Try to do this technique as much as, be consistent about it, as much as you can. Get in front of a mirror. Just throw that hand directly out in front. Practice, imagine a head being there and just practice that several times, right? That's where we're aiming for. That's the exact angle that we want to have on that technique. The second thing I want you to think about, as far as that hand technique, there's another part of this technique that is crucial to the martial arts that we do, and it's called the downward cover. Downward cover. It kind of looks like, if you ever seen a knife hand in movies and they do the chop chop, well, it looks like a chop chop, right? It looks like a knife hand. But what it's basically doing, it's coming straight down in that circular motion, right? So if he's coming towards me and he's just going to put his hand up there for a second, we're not doing anything just yet. Here's my downward cover, and I'm doing this. That's a downward cover, right? All I'm doing is that motion going downward. And it is making a circle coming towards me, just like that. Now, we want to put those two things together. So now we have a downward cover and a hammer fist, right? A downward cover. So he's going to do a hammer. Well, first, let's do that hammer fist one more time. Let everybody see it. Good. Practice that at home if you want to with us, right? Now, the downward cover, all I'm going to do, I'm going to go towards him, and he's going to do a downward cover towards me. So use this hand, just go downward cover, straight down on top of my arm, right? Now, straight down. Now, do it to me with this hand one time. So just kind of put your hand right here. Good. Just like that. Now, look what I'm going to do. Straight down. Now, as I do this motion straight down, you notice what happens. The head comes towards me. His body comes towards me. So in this position, you notice the first thing that's going to happen here, once I bend this arm downward, and again, look where I'm striking, right about here, and we're talking meridians and channels at the same time. Joint lock, right? Right there. Once I do that, the head comes towards me. It comes right towards me. As it comes towards me, that's when I'm going to throw that hammer fist, right? Right towards the side of the neck. And I'm not going to do this. He can stop me if I actually do that. If I come this way, he can see it coming. But this way, he can't really stop it. It's right there in front, right? So it's immediately in front. He can't really get around that. So the thing I want to talk about is that is the angle and the leverage and momentum right there. Somebody grabs, somebody chokes. He's got that choke on me right now, right? I'm going back from here. Now, look how this happens. He's not just staying still. He's pushing into me. The first thing I want to think about is what? I want to think about this, bringing my chin down, right? As I bring my chin down, this other hand is right here. I'm going to bring my arm downward just like this, and this other hand is going to come straight out, right to the side of the neck, just like that, right? Real easy approach, right? If I wanted to end it right here, I could just do that and break the arm. But there's a difference in self-defense. If this guy was a really big threat, and I knew that he was out to just kind of take me down and hurt me and whatever the deal was. And we're not even talking about weapons yet. Even though there are different courses in this program. There's the basic 8, there's the intermediate 8, and there's the advanced 8. Right now, we're just talking basic 8. So as we do the basic 8, you've got to use the basic techniques. Again, he's here. He's coming towards me. Look at my position. This is my position to defend myself. Hey, please don't hurt me, Mr. mean-looking face attacker, right? I don't want this person to hurt me, but he's going to go for the choke. Even though I have my hands here, he goes for the choke. That. Now, the first thing that I'm doing is I'm going backwards, right? I want to change that by bending this arm. And no matter how strong this person is, all I need to do is bring this downward. And there's that downward cover. That, right? Now, look at his head. Perfect example. Bam, just like that. And trust me, the finished product of this is when you do that, he will go down for the count. In some cases, he'll be knocked out because we're using something called meridians, channels. In the arm, right, there's channels and meridians all over. If I press this, he feels that, right? If I press this, he feels that, right? Different areas on the body he's going to feel. There's a lot of different techniques. There's fancy joint locks that you can use, but we're not going to get into joint locks just yet. Don't get into it just yet. We want to make sure that these techniques are going to be basic first, because you have to understand the basics before you can get it to advance. I always say in the classes that we teach, and you know this already, before you can run, you have to walk. Before you can walk, you have to crawl. And when we crawl, we do self-defense techniques on the ground, right? But you got to walk first before you can run. And that's all part of martial arts. It's the basics to understand how to get to that point. In martial arts, we have different belt ranks, from white all the way up to black. And when I look at that, the white belt is the beginning, right? And you kind of walk up this staircase of belts. And as you do that, you progress. You learn new forms, you learn new self-defense techniques. And this one here, this is our very first technique of the basic 8. And the reason why I did the choke first, and I want to get this across too, I could have started with somebody grabbing a wrist or somebody grabbing the lapel. We could have done that, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to start the self-defense technique with a choke because the mind plays a big part here. The mind plays a gigantic part. When he chokes me like that and I'm here and I go back, press one time, all of a sudden, right, my brain and my mind is going, oh no, what am I going to do? That's why it's so important to take the first technique and use that in line first, to understand that it's not only a self-defense technique, it's a mental defense. Your mind has to be prepared to do what you need to do in self-defense. And again, look, I love using martial arts, but I also use the mind in a lot of ways. We do Tai Chi, we do Qi Kung, we do Hapkido, we do a lot of different martial arts. This is the defensive part of what we do. Okay, so let's break it down one more time. So again, my hands are up. This guy's really mad. He might have had a bad day at work, right? And he's just going to come right at me and give me a choke. I'm here. He comes at me, bam, just like that. Now, as soon as that happens, immediately I have to go to work, right? If he presses my neck, I'm going to go back with my right leg right now, right? You can't see that. But my leg is going to step back. And as I do, first thing that's going to happen here is my hands are still up in the front. I'm going to go down like this. Now, notice what happens. When I do this, at the same time, I strike, right? Right on the side of the neck, right? Right on that side of the neck. And as I do that, it's important to understand that you can't really miss the neck. I don't know if you can see this, but check this out. Look, it's a perfect fit. The hammer fist is designed to fit perfectly in that neck. I'm not saying you should hit everybody, but it's designed to fit perfect for the self-defense technique as we do that. Okay, one more time, I'm going to go through this, and then we're going to call this. Ready? One more time. I'm here. Please don't hurt me. Mr. Bad Guy, right? I step back a little bit. I'm here. I block downward, and then I strike. Okay? Now, a few words about the self-defense techniques. You have to practice. Consistency is really important, but you cannot misuse martial arts. A lot of folks in this world that, and I'm not saying any schools, but unfortunately it happens. There's misuse of martial arts. And you may find somebody in a school, maybe a high school, that they learned a self-defense technique and they've shown it wildly in school. Can't be used that way. It's only for self-defense. Only for self-defense. It's the same thing if I gave assistant instructor here a gun and said, hey, go have fun with that gun. It's our responsibility to use that correctly, right? So we have to make sure that when you learn self-defense, you're going to use self-defense correctly. You're not just going to misuse it. We're not going to go out to the mall and we just say, hey, check this out. Let's see if this works. We're not going to do that. We're going to make sure that it's going to work efficiently in the right situation. And again, there's different dynamics of self-defense. As you're doing martial arts, you're going to learn that. There's different dynamics of martial arts. First off, I want to thank my buddy, assistant instructor here, Mr. Don Bruce. Thank you. I had a great time today. Again, I am Instructor Master Terry Lee. I really enjoyed doing this. I can tell you right now, I'm looking forward to some up-and-coming shows, get into self-defense 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to all of this. Be sure to stay tuned because we're definitely going to have some upcoming shows. And again, practice. Because I know, as much as I enjoyed it myself and Mr. Don Bruce here, we enjoyed, but consistency is the number one ticket here. Okay, consistency, keeping it up, practice as much as you can. All right, thank you folks so much. Looking forward to seeing each and every one of you real soon for the second part of the show. Thank you.